Good. How's the tuba playing? You're home today.
Yeah, and I'm home, specifically, I'm home in Pennsylvania. I went home for a week, so I'm in Pennsylvania.
Where in Pennsylvania are you from?
Like near Allentown.
Oh, okay, word. Yeah, I'm from like down like Willow Grove, Hatboro area, so like just a little
Oh,
bit south of there.
cool.
Oh, we got Bill Muter in the house. What's up, Bill?
Yo,
What's going on, dude? Oh, live from the studio. Look at the rig.
can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Good. Yeah. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I saw on Instagram you just like redid your studio setup. What you got? You want to give us a tour?
Yeah. Every year I have a whole bunch of writing this time of year to do, so I have to freshen things up to make me inspired to want to spend hours in here.
What, could you do like marching band writing or what do you do?
Right now, yeah. I just pretty much just finished, um, but I got five or six shows to write.
How did it go? What any of them gonna be big winners or were any of them
All
super
of
fun?
them, all of them. They'll all be the best thing in the world, and that yeah, it'll be amazing.
Awesome. Hey, what's up, Nathan? Good to see you.
Howdy, howdy.
Um, well, yeah, welcome. Well, we might have a couple more people trickle in, but maybe it'll be a light day today. So yeah, for those, I think Bill, you're probably the only one who hasn't been here before. This is just open hang. I never really plan anything. I just sort of like see what's on people's minds, what they want to talk about, any questions, any chat, any helpful advice. Bill, I'm sure you have plenty of help to offer to everybody. So I'd love to pick your brain about some stuff.
It's good to be
Um,
here.
but yeah, so I don't know what's on people's minds. I know Andrew, you're home today and like playing. What have you been working on?
I haven't actually been working on a lot, because I've actually been mostly doing a lot of like dentist appointments, and also it was my birthday on the Saturday, so I was also like visiting my parents, visiting friends.
Hmm.
But today's a good day to do something, and so this is the first tuba I got.
At a Yamaha? What is that?
Yeah, it's like a student Yamaha.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I've got the one that has the valve front, the 103.
Very cool.
Bill's got the real one though. You got the 621, right, Bill?
Yeah, yeah, I've had it for a long time.
Yeah. I almost bought one of those last summer, but yours is the C, right? You play the C or do you have
It's
the
a
B flat?
C. C.
Dude, I we did a big hang. Do you know this cat in town? His God, what blank David Oswald. He like runs the Louis Armstrong band in
Oh,
town.
okay, yeah.
He plays the C version. Yamaha let me borrow a B flat to like try out, and I was just like not that happy with it. I was like, for the money that they wanted me to spend on it, it
Yeah.
was like, man, but the C seemed like it played better.
Huh.
Like I don't know. That's what Matt at Dylan's told me too. He was like, yeah, dude, on those horns, they really phoned in the B flats, and they spent their time on the C's. Um, but I don't know.
That's a shame because if I had to now, I never play anything that really has a need for playing C tuba. So it's like it would just make my life easier if it was in B flat. It's like, oh, I learned this tune and I don't have to, live in two
Think
worlds. I don't
Matt.
ever play this horn. I record with it, but I don't ever play with it live anymore. But I was always curious about the B flat. I've never
Hmm.
played it, and it's like the same format and everything. But
Man, it's weird. It's like I had to like I had to pull all the tuning slides out like 6 inches
really,
just to get it going, and it was still just like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I just suck, but like it was just like not. But so at the same time, like it was like Yamaha let me borrow one of those, and what's the new one, like the 623 or whatever, like the new one that they're promoting. It's
I
like
don't know.
it's like the four. It's like a 4-4 one that they have.
Yeah,
But that horn, the B flat played amazing. It was like perfectly slotting, crazy good, crazy good.
yeah.
Um, the 621 B flat, I was just like, yo, for the amount of money that I would have to spend to get this, it was not. And they gave me a discount, but it was just not like I don't know. I wasn't. I was disappointed because I want something like that. I want a small
Yeah.
horn that is a crusher. But
It is. It is a. It plays great. This one, and it's nice. Like if you just need something small to move around, and but it yeah, it's. I don't think they have a huge market for it. There's like a lot of people that are going to play C2 but aren't going to play this. I mean, it's great for chamber playing. It's
Mhm.
small, or if you have a microphone, whatever, it's fine. But I don't think there's a huge market for that or the B flat at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. So wait, so what? Yeah, tell because I've always been curious about that because I never play C tuba. I'm coming from trombone. I'm a trombone player who picked up a sousaphone, so B flat's the only thing that ever made sense to me.
Yeah.
But like, what has your experience been, especially like as like an improvising tuba player who like does this kind of stuff with the whole? Because I just always tell everybody if you're gonna do it, you should just stick to B flat because sousaphones are in B flat and
Yeah.
whatever. Like, what's your experience been in that sort of like dividing the two worlds, like you said, or translating or whatever? Like, yeah, I guess what's your
Well, it wasn't on purpose. So I got this horn when I was touring with Blast years ago. The show was sponsored by Yamaha,
yep,
so we got new horns every tour. And my first tour I did with them was a Japan tour. So years later, when I finished, I'm like, you know what? Let me get one of those horns. I wonder if I could find one for sale. And a friend of mine was tasked to resell some of the used horns.
mm-hmm.
And this one was used, but I was the only one who played it for
Yep,
like a 3 month tour or something. So I ended up buying it at a strong discount, and I've had that horn probably since 2007 now. So
yep,
that was like I replaced a bigger C tuba that was for orchestral playing when I realized I wasn't going to play in an orchestra. So that was like my workhorse for the longest time.
yeah,
Not by like design, but just because I was really comfortable with it. I
yeah,
played with it for years, so I'm like, I know I like this. And as a tuba player, it's hard you can't just walk into any music store. Let me try all these different horns.
yeah,
It's not like walking into a guitar center and trying every guitar on the wall. So I just went with what I knew was good. And then I was big away from sousaphone for many years. It just felt like a different instrument. It felt more slinky. And then I got a deal with Adams to try their horn, and I'm like, all right. I played it,
You weren't playing sousaphone at all before the Adams.
nothing.
Got it.
No, so I tried it out, brought it to a studio. Like the day it shipped, I got it in and went to meet my friend in the studio. He was recording, and I played two notes. He's like, "That's the sound. You got to play that. That's the one." I'm like, "All right, I guess this is going back to the roots, going to
And you were
sousaphone."
like, crap. Now I gotta think B flat.
Yeah, it was so much more easy though because I lived in that. Like I spent
hmm
more time. I mean, right now I feel like I got good at C because I read band scores all the time. If I'm teaching, it's all kind of one thing. But I will say when you're learning certain tunes, like if I want to learn a bunch of standards, I do have to think about. I know it more on B flat than I do on C. If I go to C, I'm like, I
Why?
like.
Yeah. Why do you think that? Or like, what do you attribute that to?
I think because everything else I still play is B flat.
Because
I
you play
like.
trumpet and trombone and all that stuff.
Yeah, everything else is B flat, and that's the one thing that's C. So I've always kind of wanted to just swap that out for the B flat version until you just mentioned the B flat isn't
It's.
quite the same.
I don't want to. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say that. But like, I'm. Yeah, I will say that Matt, the like head tech at Dylan's, that was his opinion
Yeah,
when he told me that. And then when I borrowed it for like 2 months, and I really really tried to make it work, and
yeah.
it just I could not justify it. Wait, Jesus, what were you telling me about the whole Bonda thing? How like everybody thinks in C or everybody thinks in B flat? Like, wasn't there something interesting about that?
Yeah, yeah, it's because like everyone has their instrument in a different key. Like the sousaphone's in B flat, the trombones are in C, the alto horns are in E flat, and the trumpets, well, they're in B flat as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But everyone just goes by the same key. Like, if the song is in B flat concert, everyone just establishes it's in C, like for the trumpet.
Uh huh.
So, it's like, oh, what key is the song? It's in do, you know. Okay, everyone knows what their do is.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can't wrap my brain around that. Like what? So like it's like everybody's just sort of it's just kind of off the sound of like what like this is where we're at, or what do you mean?
Well, for a trumpet, the open note is called a C, right?
Sure.
Okay, and on the tuba, well, since they treat the tuba like if it was a trumpet, so for the tuba, the note is called a C.
Mm-hmm.
For the trombone, the note actually is a C on open. They're open. They're C trombones.
They're playing C trombones. That's crazy.
Yeah, and then on the E flat alto horn, well, as to not complicate things further, they just call it C. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's just to simplify everything. It's more of like a mutually understood thing between like everyone in the group.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it makes more sense than all of this math that we have to do for the other, like doing transposition elsewhere.
Yeah, it happens like whenever I play with musicians that are from here, you know, you kind of got to explain to them why it's like that, right? But whenever you gig with musicians that are actually like from Mexico, like there's no explanation needed. Like everyone just universally understands what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that's been my experience because when I first started playing banda, it was the same way with me, like but the other way around. Like I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me. They were telling me that the song is an F, and I'm over here like idiot trying to play the song in F, but they're like, no, you're playing the wrong key. I'm like, well, you said it was an F. It's like, no, like F, like this is F. I'm like, oh, E flat, okay, like
Yeah.
then I understood. It's a thing, man. It's a thing.
How much?
No,
I love your shirt, by the way, Jesus.
Oh yeah, I wore it specifically for the meeting.
oh yeah, what do you
This
hold?
is
Stand
this
up.
is
What you got? What you got? Oh
this is
yeah.
yeah.
I've always wondered how much of Banda is improv.
What was that?
How much of Banda is improvisational? I've been listening to
Uh,
Banda. So many tuba lines are like pop, 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 these fast riffs and everything like that. And I'm
mo
watching you.
most of the tuba part is mainly improvised, because like there is sheet music,
Mhm.
but it's just a transcription of what the original recording did. Like, but you don't have to follow that. As long as you
Yeah.
know how to play by ear, you got a more or less a good ear for coming up with the bass line and banda. Like, you don't really most of the tuba is improv, but you just gotta play certain licks that are like mandatory in the song.
Mhm.
Like if it's a key feature that the tuba has that is absolutely part of the song, you cannot not play it.
Yeah.
That's the only time it's like not improvised. But usually it's just if you know how to make up your line, you know the key, you know how the song goes. Most of it is just improv.
Yeah, Nathan, are you mostly playing like straight written parts for in your band, or is there improvisation going on?
Um, that's a good question. um, Mostly it's written. It's parts that we've written.
Yeah.
Um, in Cacophonics, in fact, I just finished tracking all the tuba for the new album this
Oh,
last
how'd
week.
it go?
It went, it was really well. So I have two tubas. I have my my old con, the same one that you have. That's been my workhorse for 3 years. And then just this last month, I got an Olds 0991, I think is what it is, and it's got the forward facing valves.
Yeah.
And I was surprised how much of a contrast between the two horns there was. I compared to like a Fender jazz bass versus a Fender precision bass, with my con being more like the precision bass and my olds being more like the jazz bass. The olds was a
Punchier.
lot. Sorry.
So like
Yeah.
the old is like punchier and more direct or something like that.
Punchier, more direct, more expressive.
Yeah.
I've been having a blast playing it, honestly. I try not to be anthropomorphic with my horns, but I feel like my old horn is jealous because I've been picking up the olds and just, the breath support is so much more just, wow, I can get these bigger, more expressive lines. And the fact that I can hold it like this, I don't have to wear a strap or anything like that, which for that band, we move around a lot. So that's a real appeal. But it's kind of funny. I ran into this strange quirk. I kind of made a list of songs I wanted to use my con for and songs I wanted to use my olds for on the album. And I ran into this conundrum I didn't anticipate. My con has the valves up here. My olds has them down here. And some of the faster songs I'd been playing up here, there were a couple riffs, like these fast 16th notes, da 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 kind of riffs that I physically couldn't. Not only could I not do them fast enough down here, but the valves didn't react as quickly without gravity working for them. So a couple songs that I wanted to use my olds for, I was like, I'm going to have to use the con for this. And it wasn't the worst thing in the world. We played a couple tracks, and the engineer we were working with just like, honestly, I could EQ things in the mix, and that's fine. But I thought that was kind of funny. That, and on the con, 1 and 2, and of course 3 by itself, are the same position, essentially, same note. On my olds, it's just a quarter step flat on the third valve when I play that just by itself. I can get away with it live, but on the recording, we did a couple songs like, nope, I can't use this horn, or I'm going to have to change up my fingering because, songs have been practicing for months using just the third position. I had to switch up to that. So that was kind of neat. But to answer your initial question, we make up the parts. By the time they're made up, there's, about 10% margin of improvisation. But for me, anyway, once we kind of write it, we tend to stick with it.
It's an interesting point, like kind of like what Jesus was saying, and Bill, I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Of like when you're learning tunes, there's especially when you're like learning tunes from a reference and like just kind of getting in, it's like there's this sort of like knowing what's absolutely essential to the tune, like as far as like what are the hits that you have to hit every time, what are like the iconic parts of the song, and then like what is just the general form and vibe of the song that can be played with and all of that. And like depending on the genre, depending on the band, there's all sort you can have a lot of leeway sometimes, and then sometimes like you just have to play it the same exact time every time. But like it all I guess that's something for me that, and because you guys are doing like more like you're composing the pieces, and so there's that kind of thing. But like so like tonight I'm playing with Slavic Soul Party, and
awesome.
They have a bunch of it's all very written out stuff, like with like very written out bass lines that can be performed exactly that way every time, and the way that most guys play that book is they just read it straight down. But like because I've had so much experience playing all sorts of Balkan and Serbian music, I'm just thinking chord structure and like knowing when I have to hit that like ba ba da ba da, like every time or something. There's like certain licks that I have to nail, but then outside of that, I'm just having fun and playing with the drummer and that kind of stuff. And that's like the best part about being a bass player. You know what I mean?
I heard I've been listening to the audiobook of Geddy Lee's My Effin' Life the last week at work. It's a great book, by the way, if you're even remotely a Rush fan. It's and of course, Geddy is a bass man, so he talks about discovering, bass and its role in their music and everything like that. But he talks about, if you know anything about Rush, of course, Neil Peart was their second drummer. Mm-hmm. And there's a chapter where he talks about Neil's audition. And it's a great chapter. He says, the first guy, honestly said, folks, I honestly can't remember the first guy. And then I remember this tall, lanky guy came in with his drums and garbage cans, set up and started playing. He said, and I just instantly fell in love with what I was doing. We jammed in 7/8 time. We did all this great stuff. And he was like, I knew then and there Neil was the guy. But we agreed to go in and audition like a dozen other players. And the guy right after Neil said he showed up with like almost the exact same drum set as John Rutsey had, and all of John Rutsey's parts like staffed out, And I listen to that and just think, that poor drummer, he knew this band was going on tour. He thought, okay, I'm going to do exactly what their old drummer did, and I'm guaranteed to get the job. And Geddy Lee said he played exactly what Rutsey played, and we went, well, that's nice.
Thank you, sir.
Exactly. We're going to go with this guy over here who we just jammed with in 7/8 and did all this crazy stuff. And I mean, fate is what fate is. But I've been thinking about that ever since I heard it. Like, yeah, we can show up and add what they're looking for. That's
there's playing the part, and then there's expressing yourself. Yeah, Bill, do you have like some favorite drummers that you love to play with, and like what do you love about what like different people bring?
I love drummers that listen more than they contribute to what they're doing, because it leaves space for conversation. I've played with a lot of great drummers, and I would say probably my favorite settings are more in the small, like trio settings, because you can stretch out. You could do a lot more. But yeah, man, I love just the guys who listen. And there's a lot of people that I've played with that, a lot of people don't even know and haven't heard the names before, but just great local musicians that just have amazing ears, that are empathetic and if it's like my group, there's certain drummers that I've hired that I will come prepared, and they'll learn the little things on my album, or like the little eccentricities that were stupid to me, but you could tell they really put in the time and effort to learn it. And I don't know, that goes a long way. But the listening thing, not trying to cover up, and they can still be busy, they can still do a lot, but to lead with that is huge. It's everything, and as a bass player too, of course.
Yeah. There's definitely like you and I both played with Murph Allcamp. One of the things I love, like with Murph, it literally feels like he can read your mind.
Yes.
Like it literally just feels like he's, and it's like that type of thing where like sometimes there'll be like somebody's playing a tune and like there'll be a break, and there's some people that just have this like psychic thing where they just feel that, oh, we were breaking there, or like, oh, the song just ended, or like, oh, there's a hit right there. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's obviously you got to have chops, right? And obviously like you have to like know what you're doing and not be overthinking. But there's this thing of like when a great bass player and drummer really link up and start playing with each other all the time, it's just like you start reading each other's minds, and you start like almost like tapping into what's just the music that's going on around you. It's almost like you're both reading from the same sheet music that's just flowing through the air, kind of thing.
And Murphy's got amazing ears, dude. Like he's someone who's just got like, traveling abroad. We were in Indonesia last year, and he's the first to pick up on the language. And so I'm always leaning on him everywhere we go. Hey, can you order for me? Like, he's got this great ears, and he's got perfect pitch, that jerk. So he could sit at the piano and just play anything. That he's like a karaoke machine. But I mean, that also reflects in his playing. He's just like listening to every aspect and responding accordingly.
Yeah. Does anybody else have like great drummer relationships that they love, or bad drummer relationships, without naming names?
I just lost a longtime drummer friend of mine earlier this month, and a guy named Robert Chapanis, and here's to you, Boyle. But he and I played together in a band called Pullin' Me Damned, where I played bass guitar for on and off for 20 years. And the wonderful thing about that band is we had our roster of songs, but I don't think we ever played any one of them the same way twice. Guitar, bass, drums, vocals, and the chorus is always happen in the same place, the verses always happen in the same places, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. But we had one song that could either be 4 minutes or 12 minutes, depending on what mood we were in. We had our jam spaces, and our guitarists would just go off, and the two of us just kind of lock in and do that wonderful thing where you're playing separately but together. We're all in the same beat, the same groove, but you're and then you kind of zone in. Yeah, you start listening like, well, what's he doing over there? Oh, if he's doing that, I'm going to try doing this, and oh, now he's changing up his thing because I'm doing this thing, and now we're kind of letting it go somewhere else, and we had a lot of fun doing that. The guy in Cacophonics that I'm playing with, he's actually, I've been with that band for 3 years now, and I've played with dozens of drummers, and he's definitely one of my favorites. He's very musical, and yeah, you can tell he's listening. He'll just, if we write a new song, sometimes he'll just sit and listen to it for a couple minutes, and very musical. Like he won't just, okay, this is in 4/4, basic 4/4 beat, basic 3/4 beat, whatever. Like he's doing hi-hat sizzles, he's doing little tom taps and things like that, and creating melodies within the drum line itself. And on our last album, I did this thing. I still do this sometimes, where I'll listen to the whole album and I'll just focus in on one instrument. I mean, when you record your own music, you can't help but kind of listen to your part and what you did, and love the parts you love and hate the parts you hate and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes I'm like, well, I'm just trying to listen to just the trumpet, the same way I'd listen to my line, or just the trombone, just the piano. And I've listened to him and be like, holy geez, he's doing all these great little subtle hi-hat sizzles and these little, just these tiny little things that you don't notice unless you're listening to them. But if you were to take them out, the song wouldn't have the energy, the passion, the chutzpah that it does.
Yeah.
So that's my buddy Dan Koenig. He's a drummer for Cacophonics, and that's been.
Yeah, man. Sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Andrew, how about the drummers in your band? What do you like about them? What do you tell us about that?
Let's see. The band in my Thursday night sort of jam band, he's pretty fantastic. I think that we kind of lock in and kind of listen to each other. I'm always like kind of like looking at him and back and forth to try to make sure we're in sync. And then I guess as far as like bad drum experiences, and I think it's more of an issue with me just having volume issues, but like in Good Trouble when I play with them, there's usually like 4 to 5 people playing drums, and then like I'm like the only tuba, and I feel like they always want me to stand right next to the drums, and then they don't change the volume that they're playing at, and I feel like it sucks, like especially the bass drum kind of like sucks all of the volume out of me, and it's hard to hear. Which I don't know if there's a good workaround to that.
Are you totally acoustic when you're playing in that group?
Yeah, I'm not like mic'd up. We're like outside.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say the workaround is is not being acoustic. I'm really lazy when it comes to playing. Like I'm not a loud player. There's certain music that I just like. If I were doing second line, I would not be the best tuba player. I play it, but I don't project on there. I would not be the best. But I never play. It's rare that I'll ever play without a certain mic setup. To me, it's just become part of the sound that I want to create now. But that's the thing, and a lot of it is just for my own preservation. Because if you think about it, if you're the bass player, if I'm playing bass on a gig, I'm fine. As you have calluses built up, you're good. You can play for a while, but like as the bass player on tuba in a group, you don't stop playing. So if you're a horn player, you play. Oh, someone's taking a solo. You're chilling. You're dancing. You're doing this. But you never stop on tuba. So for me, if like I get called to play a long gig, it's my own self-preservation. Like I just want to have some amplification so I could turn that up. I can also get a softer articulation that sounds more round. If once you start to punch, your tone changes. It's like playing slap bass. It's a technique, but it's a different sound. So for me, it's just like the mic, the amplification. It's just like literally become part of my instrument.
That makes a lot of sense. I wish I had more of an option to play with a mic setup.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Jesus, do you ever have that? Because I know a lot of those Banda bands, there's like multiple drummers in them, right?
Yeah, there's usually, well, technically there's four drummers, but there's only four drummers with like a certain style of song.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, it's two drummers, a bass drum with the hi-hat on top, and the other one is a snare drum with two timbales. The Thunder Tims are really big timbales.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, kind of like what Bill's talking about, like, resonates with me a little bit because, I I I typically do find myself in the position where I do have to outplay two drummers, nine wind musicians in the front, and two singers, and it's something that just comes as like second nature to me, like when when I know I'm not playing with a microphone, I like, mentally adjust and I go at it, and I'm able to be heard, above everyone else. But like he says, when you have a microphone, self-preservation, like, okay, I could take it a little bit easier on myself now,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But when it comes to what, like, because yeah, I'll play with like, right, kind of like Andrew, I'll play like standing next to the drummers, not because of like a connection or anything, but because we want to be able to hear each other,
Yeah.
because yeah, a lot of the times, um, in the few cases where we do end up having to play acoustically, like we're all playing acoustically. Sometimes, well, I don't have the benefit of, I usually use an in-ear monitor. Well, in that situation, I don't have them here, and I don't hear them. They're not facing me playing. They're facing the audience or whoever, right? Um, and sometimes we just kind of have to, like, okay, it sounds like we're hearing the music, and then we just kind of gotta lock in together as a section, tuba, snare, and bass drum, and just stay locked in, beginning to end. If we start together, we know we're gonna end at the same da 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 da, da like that, and then we're good. But I don't know. It's weird when you're not used to being in that position of uh playing by like playing by yourself, and having to be the the base of the group. I don't know, it's just like I said, like, for me, it's typical. But in your case, with Andrew, like, I would say one of the things you could do in that scenario where you're put in acoustically with the next to the drummers is, just, I don't know, like, face your bell to them, or something, because
Maybe.
you know that's something you could do.
Where are you
Yeah.
based out of, Jesus?
I'm in Brownsville, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, one of the yeah, I definitely the bell, like playing with the bell angle is like it's crazy what a hack that is. Like it'll sound like a completely different horn no matter where you're pointing it and stuff. Like my other big hack for this, and I tell people all the time, like not everybody likes it because it feels different and all that, but earplugs, dude. Foam, just the regular foam earplugs. It does a twofold thing where like it cuts down on the abrasiveness of the drums in your face and helps you kind of like balance that out. But then it just like it gives you a monitor. Like I'm like right now I can just hear what I'm it to me playing with foam earplugs in and like having them really sealed feels like I'm plugged into a bass amp when I'm acoustic. And it takes a little bit. Some people just hate it because like the difference, you just got to get used to it. There's definitely like I got to get used to this so that it feels right and stuff. But it can really make the difference between like because a lot of times what winds up happening in those sort of situations is like, yeah, it's so loud, um, and it's so chaotic, and your bell is so 4 feet from your ear and it's going that way that that you wind up having to like to just to hear yourself. Where if
Yeah.
if you put the earplugs in, it's right in your face. It like your tone is, and you can because the thing is like you don't actually like when you're actually like I'm sure if you were to be standing in front of the band as an observer listening, you would still be able to hear the tuba that you're playing at a lower volume either way. It's a big instrument, you know. It's like you're not going to get lost. It's just that like you're trying to compensate because of how crazy it feels right in the middle of all these drummers. Whereas like what earplugs helps you do is it just makes it so that like you can lock into your core, you don't have to overblow anymore because you can hear yourself the whole time. Um, and it protects your ears, honestly. That's the other big thing is that like bro, yeah, that was. I mean, I initially started doing it because I was getting headaches, you know, from like playing with loud drummers and like the loud tuba bell and like always overblowing and just like needing to protect and just like going home with ears ringing and stuff like that and starting to really get concerned with it. But then after and at that point I was just like, oh, I hate this. I hate playing with earplugs in. This sucks. Blah blah blah. But now I prefer it. Like I just got used to the way it sounds. I can trust that when I do this, and like sometimes I'll like play the first song with one ear in, one ear out, so I just can kind of be sure of where my volume level is. Just so I know like, oh no, I'm playing at an appropriate volume level and this is what it physically feels like. So I'll just sort of set myself there and then go in and I'm like in my zone. But it really yeah, at this point now I prefer it. It's my favorite way to play because it just like I can have that control. I can have that like self-preservation that Bill's talking about with the bass amp thing, but not plugged in, which has been super helpful for me.
You know, that's just kind of funny because I remember like back in high school, uh, like week two one the week or two before our like main competition for marching, they would have us do the marching show with earplugs. So we would like, oh, watch, don't rely because we would play in a dome for a competition. So there's going to be
Yeah, to say
echo
that.
and all that. Yeah, and they would tell us that way you don't rely on what you're hearing around you. You have to watch the drum major. And I remember that first time I ever put earplugs in and played, on the tuba, I felt so weird. I was like, everything just sounds like oh oh yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience.
Has anybody ever used bone induction headphones?
No.
The ones that they sit on your temple and they vibrate, and that's where you get the sound from. But anybody who's used them before, there really isn't a bass element. Okay, I mean it sounds kind of tinny, but they used to include uh, uh, earplugs with that purpose. As soon as you put them in, all of a sudden there's bass, and it's kind of the same concept there. That's what you're talking about. And yeah, as soon as you said that marching band and earplugs, I was like, yep. And he's about to mention a dome because
Hmm.
the sound is just it just goes up and stays there. It
Yeah.
just yeah, you don't have anything. I remember playing in the I've only played in a dome once as in marching band, but it was the old Indianapolis, the Hoosier Dome before it became
Mm.
the RCA one. And yeah, man, that was crazy. That was nuts. You couldn't hear a damn thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard when
yeah.
when you're a young, inexperienced musician in high school and you rely purely on, oh, the drummers are right here or they're playing over here. Like, okay, that's where I go. But when you cut all that off and I couldn't really wrap my head around the concept of like okay, yes, I'm watching the drum major, but how do I know I'm right or that guy is not playing like two measures behind or ahead,
If it feels
and
right, you're probably wrong.
And yeah,
Usually the
exactly.
case.
you know what though? Until when I was at Temple, I was the drum major for 2 years. That was about 200 pounds ago. And when when I was there,
From in high school.
yeah. But
I
dude,
feel tagged.
when you've got the percussion on the 20-yard line and you got like bass elements and everything, you got people spread out. I mean, I'm sure, Steve, you know this, then I'm sure anybody who's done it before, you're watching the snares, the center snare's feet. You have to.
Right.
That's the only way, because the information coming to your ears, holy shit. You don't understand everything. You're hearing like it sounds like two groups are warming up on the field.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So you're just sitting there. I'm sitting there going like this, watching, just watching the center snare's feet. Yeah.
Steve, you ever playing marching band?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, high school. I was a drum major in college too. Don't ask me to do no back bends now, but somebody have to help me up.
I was glad I was at a white boy marching band. I couldn't do that back bend shit.
Hey,
Oh.
listen, workout, man. Workout.
Yeah, Bill,
You
I
use
don't
it?
know if you guys weren't here. Bill just said that he just finished up what five shows for 5 different marching bands. What was it?
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
like 5 1/4, 5, and some helping another school to rewrite some stuff.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
At least it's early on in the summer.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
that rewriting, in the middle of August.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty good with that. Like if I
Yeah.
get like first feedback, if anybody wants any adjustments, like, hey, move this solo here, can you revoice this trumpet thing or whatever. I have a little bit of that, but I've been trying to eliminate rewrites every year of like, all right, just give me exactly what you want, and because it's so time consuming. But drill's the worst. I'm glad I don't write drill, because I did that one year and I swore to never do it, because you're always waiting on everybody else, and then you got to write it, and everybody's bothering you. We got to camp on Monday. We need to have this drill in time, and I don't need that stress in my life. I'm good.
When I was a freshman, our opener had like 5 revisions, and that was the same year I was learning how to play tuba. So I was like, stop changing it. Like
Huh.
I didn't even know how to read the last 4 versions, let alone this new one.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Um,
I don't know. Our school's different. I mean, like almost every other week was like a new show, but kind of at the same time, like our drill was kind of different. Like we drilled in squads, so it wasn't necessarily like a go to this position, go to this position. You were kind of in like squads of 4, and it's like, okay, slant for 4, slant for 8. You know what I'm saying? Or man, 1, 2-man like step like for 8 or 12 count. So it was a little more simpler, but like almost every other week you had to have like a different show, like
You do,
with the
yeah.
music.
Especially in college. In college,
Wow.
we
Yeah.
had, one week wonders.
Yeah, that was high
you
school
learned
and college for me.
Yeah, I know that's crazy, man. You
Yeah.
say that. It's like, wow. I'm thinking about who is it? Was it Grambling or Southern that puts the score on the field?
But Southern.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
They
they
put
put the
the
score on the
daggum
field
halftime score on the field, man.
every
So they
weekend.
change it up every game. It's
But
so
you had to be
cool, man.
current. Like even with the music, like man, by almost halfway through the season or like past homecoming, I mean you had like maybe at least 40 tunes like memorized, like because you had to keep up with what was current, with the music that was current. So, if you were playing like I mean, of course you got your classics, Earth, Wind and Fire, stuff like that, but we had dance routines, so you had to do stuff that was like out now. That was just you might have heard on the radio last week. So I was one of the arrangers, they'd be like, hey man, this song just came out by Kanye, like we need to do this, stuff like that. So, you had to be on your P's and Q's, or it was like the crowd really was into it. And they'd be like, oh yeah, you sound good, but their songs are better than yours, so you suck.
like what I want to know about the marching bands and America and all of that stuff is it like what happens to all of those sousaphone players after they graduate? And why aren't there why like if there are all these marching bands that have freaking 20 sousaphone players in them each, and there's like I don't know what 20, 50, how many marching bands are we talking about in like the college,
Yeah.
like why aren't there hundreds of brass bands all over America? Like why, like what did they all just quit? Is that what happened?
It's not in the curriculum, man, because like
Yeah.
in school and in college, it's if you want to play tuba, it's all about this classical route. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, myself included, I see that I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be that person that's gonna win the audition when this guy dies and I have to
Yeah.
take over that seat. So they're like, well, there's no career there, and a lot of people get burnt, fried out, and like, all right, well, I'm gonna do something that is, gonna be more stable. And that's why I
God.
feel like so many people leave that area is because of that.
Oh, snap,
Mm.
Miles.
I did marching band all 4 years at Temple as a performance major, which is very, very, very unusual.
Yeah.
But the reason I did it is because we called ourselves the 2KC, the $2,000 club. So we
Yeah.
got an extra $2,000 for
Like
being
like a
in a marching band.
scholarship?
Yeah, yeah. And then you got to do pep band, and if you stayed there during the winter, that was an extra of like $400 to play those games during the winter, and then you got another like $1,500 for doing tournaments. I needed it. I needed the money, so
Yeah.
I stayed at marching band all 4 years.
But
But
like
yeah, oh
most of
no,
those tuba players,
very odd for
most
music
of those
majors to
tuba
be in
players
there.
aren't music majors though, right? Like a lot of
Right.
the tuba
Yeah.
players,
It depends.
like
I think
whatever.
that's some of it.
It
Yeah.
depends on the
It's
school.
a thing. You know what I'm saying? And once you
It's how
graduate,
they do
it's
their.
like, well, on to my major and thing that I went to school for. And it's like, okay, that was
It's also
cool.
how
That was
they.
fun. Yeah.
It's also how they do their scholarships. Like University of Kentucky, when I first started there, theirs was tied to the marching band. Hey, enjoy your full scholarship and your 4 years in marching band.
Mm.
Mhm.
There's some schools that are that way. And then Temple, Jay tried his hardest to get us all out. We're like, we just want to get paid, Jay.
Yeah.
We want money.
No, I just like I just it always interests me that there's so many sousaphone players playing, and then they just quit because
Yeah.
they graduate and they're off to their business world or whatever. But what that means is that there's plenty of people who have enough chops to hold down a bass line in a band. They just don't know how the path goes. They don't know how to get
Yeah.
there. They don't know. And like, what do we got to do to change that culture to where like all of those people who are playing can see a path forward for casual playing, for just like because yeah, I'm not saying like yo, give up
Mhm.
your business degree and get and like give it all up and play tuba full time. I'm saying like yo, you can play the tuba, go play in a band after you graduate or start a band while you're in school. Like what's got to happen for that to become the culture for those, because yeah, like I mean I've said this so many times, like I want to see the brass band culture in America blow up. I want it to be like Banda is happening in Mexico, or like brass bands are in Serbia, where like every village has a band and this kind of stuff. Like how do we get it so that like that's what sousaphone players and marching bands wind up doing?
This is a
Probably
path to it.
exposure.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. This is a path to it. Tuba's not ubiquitous, man. I mean, you put tuba bass first, but we both know it's bass in capital letters with tuba just, a little 10-point font, out to the side. Can we change that? Well, doing this type of stuff certainly can. And
Mm.
encouraging guys to get out there, but it's the ubiquity of the thing, man. We got to get more tuba players doing more things. So it's that
Yeah,
simple.
Well,
yeah, like kind of like with the roots, it's like that's one of like the main things that comes to people's minds when they think of like a tuba player in a band. You know,
Yeah,
we
which
need
is
more of
great. I
that.
was so happy when they first got the Roots on Tonight Show.
Mhm.
Yep. You got and also you got Homeboy playing in the Colbert group.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. So I mean, yeah, it's gonna and then Chucker was playing with Lauryn Hill, I think. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that was Steve. Never mind. But it's that type of exposure that's going to do it, man. And I applaud you for what you've been doing anyway, Steve. But this type of thing is what gets people encouraged for that.
Yeah, and it's still just like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. We got Miles. I see you're on the call. Like the culture down in New Orleans is where it's so ubiquitous, right? But it's like the only place where it's that ubiquitous that like Tuba, and I get and I guess like Jesus, you can kind of talk to the Banda stuff where it's like it's pretty ubiquitous there. But like what's cool about New Orleans is it's very much like, yeah, like a blues band will have a tuba in the bass chair instead of a thing, like just like any band could have a tuba in the chair instead of a bass player in the chair. And
Well,
like
a big part of it, and I hate saying this, but I say it with love, is that the tuba isn't the most practical instrument. I mean, they're expensive first and foremost. I have two, and I was lucky to find them at the price I did. I play guitar. I taught guitar professionally for a living for years, and you can find a pretty decent guitar to $200 to $300, and
Nice.
put your 9-year-old kid on it, and have them play it for a summer, and maybe they like it, maybe they don't. Maybe they start a punk band in the garage, maybe they don't. Maybe they play in church, maybe they don't. Tuba's just harder to come by. And when you have them, they're big, heavy hunks of metal that are kind of awkward. And if they're not, ubiquitous in the culture, then it's kind of hard to get them there. Here in the Northwest, I think about this all the time. We have some real talent in the Pacific Northwest, but one thing we don't have is that cultural, in the roots, in the soil, in mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, great-grandma, great-grandpa music that you grew up with, like Celtic or Banda or the blues or things like that. We just don't really have that here. We have a little bit of everything. We have people who are really interested in a little bit of everything and really experimental and great talent. It's a long story, but I had a conversation a couple of years ago with when I was working in a farm. I had a conversation with this gal from Tennessee, and without meaning to, she summed up the Pacific Northwest mindset better than I think I've ever heard anybody ever said it. I was working at this agricultural research center back in the early 2010s, and this young gal, this cute little, just quintessential Southern belle, she honest to goodness talked like this, y'all, and just this sweet thing with big blue eyes and blonde hair. And she was, she was adorable, and she was working in Mount Vernon, Washington State, and we had struck up this conversation one day, and I said, my parents are from West Virginia, so I've been back east, and I've seen that kind of culture, but I asked her, her first time in Washington State, I said, what's the biggest difference you've seen between the Northwest and the Southeast? And without hesitating and without meaning to be insulting or ironic, she said, well, nobody here knows how to cook. Everybody knows how to garden, but nobody knows how to cook. And I got to tell you, folks, as a lifelong Northwesterner, I'm like, oh my God, I think you just summed us up perfectly. Wow. We have the talent and the knowledge, but we don't have the generational culture that other places do. Wow. And what does that have to do with tuba? You're right, Steve. It's a ubiquitous in New Orleans. It's been there for generations, decades. It's been there since before our folks were born. It goes back to Louis Armstrong and to Charlie Christian and back in the turn of the previous century. And in Mexico, you got Banda, you got places like that. In parts of Europe, Eastern Europe especially, you've got groups like that. I guess it just hasn't spread, that far since then.
It's nothing.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Nathan. I was just gonna say it's nothing to it but to do it though. One of the most prolific brass bands is from Wisconsin. Youngblood's from Wisconsin. Man.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and no,
I'll play with that.
Yeah. Yep. No BS Brass is from Richmond. And there's plenty of groups that Lucky Chops is from Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you've got places outside of Louisiana. Obviously they're influenced. There's no way they're not. But yeah, so Nathan can start, the Nathan Brass Band up in Pacific Northwest, and then all of a sudden Pacific Northwest has got a pin in it.
Well,
It's
and
getting there. We have the large honk fest and things like that. We have
Hmm.
chaotic.
Oh yeah, Honkfest West.
Yeah, and that's been growing the last couple of years. So it's definitely
well,
it's
and it's
picking
more
up.
than brass bands, right? It's like especially for so many people on this call, we have the chops and the networking ability, and the different people that we could start branching out. Where it's like brass bands is one thing, and like I said, like I have this heart for the brass band culture and all that, but like it's like the other thing that we said, that it's just about like it will take this generational thing of people seeing Tuba in this role and then being like, oh, and then kids seeing that and being like, oh, I want to do that. Or like other tuba players being like, wait, that dude can do this on a tuba? Oh my God. Like Alan knows our one buddy Garrel, who's in the studio. He was just telling us a story on Sunday about how like it was like a couple weeks ago. He was at this open mic night, and a buddy that he knew was there. He was like, "Oh, like, do you have your tuba? Go get it out of your car." And so he got it out of the car, and then they like threw together like a little like trio at this open mic night where he was just playing classic rock tunes, and it was cool. And then there was somebody approached him at the open mic night that then was like, "Oh, hey, I have these like jam parties at my house. I would love for you to come." And this last weekend was the jam that he went to, and he like told us the story about how he went to the jam party, and like the only bass player there was a dude who was actually a guitar player who just wound up being the only one usually willing to play bass. And so like he was just sort of like whatever. And the guy was, and at first everybody was like, what's this tuba guy doing here? Like, what's he gonna do? And then by the end of the night, the guitar bass guy was like, nah, I'm not playing bass anywhere. You got it. You know what you're doing. Like he was playing an E all night because it was just like, guitar players and that kind of thing. But by the end of the night, it was just like, oh, I just jammed with all sorts of musicians that I never would have thought to or been able to jam with, or like never or even more would have thought to let me do that. Because not only is it that like tuba players don't, it goes both ways, right? Like the tuba player has to be the one sort of like asserting themselves in the situation, being like, no, I'm a bass player, I'm a tuba bass player, like this is what I do, this is my role. But then also we have to be the ones like showing people, no, I can hold it down and it's going to feel great and you're going to love it and it's going to look cool and I got this shiny thing, or beat up, dented up thing. Either way.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. It definitely takes a lot of will from both ends. Because I feel like a lot of times it's the tuba player, the musician, who is afraid to go for it out of fear of sounding bad or messing up, or oh, I can't hack it, or that's not something a tuba would normally do.
They're
But
gonna
it's
judge
also,
me.
yeah, 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 and it's also the like the whoever's in charge of the bands, or like to see a tuba and think like, wait, that doesn't belong here, like it goes both ways, like for someone that has a band, to see someone trying to take the role of a bass with the tuba, like I imagine there's a lot of people out there that are so close-minded to it, and that's just one of the big things that has to change as well.
You
A
got
lot
to
of it
change their
is,
minds yourself.
yeah, I feel like a lot of it is our own mindset. You know, nobody comes banging down my doors looking for a tuba player. Most of
Yeah.
the things that I do are just opportunities that I created for myself.
Yeah.
Now, I do
Mhm.
get calls, and I'm fortunate to get calls, but the majority over the years is just like, I want to do this. All right, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to put it together. If I want to play this style of music that I'm good at and I enjoy, I'm going to make a group and do that. And I think other musicians see people hustling and they want to be a part of that hustle. They say like, oh man, this guy's doing these really dope things. I want to be a part of that. I want to play with him. And it has less to do about, I think in most situations, it has less to do about whether you play bass or tuba. It just has to do with the person that you are. Like, who are you as a human being? Do I want to spend time with this person? If you're in a band with someone, the show may be 2 hours long, but the trip to get to wherever you're going and back is the hang lasts longer than the music. So to me, I feel like any opportunity I have is something I either made or I cultivated just through friendships. So someone didn't hire me. I've been in a lot of situations where I've been hired to be the bass player. And I'll ask, do you want me to play bass or tuba? And they're like, whatever you want. Like, it's up to you. You do you. And then I make that decision, like what really best fits the music and the vibe that they're trying to create, whatever. But I think it all has to do with those friendships. Not being afraid to just put yourself out there and do it. And I see people in here doing stuff, and it's inspiring. I see Steven doing stuff, and it's like, all right, I gotta hustle. Like he's doing stuff. Rising tide raises all ships. Like we're all doing things together. So I think it's really, I think a lot of times it just has less to do about other people's perceptions of ourselves and our own perception of ourselves, and just doing it and not asking for permission. Just, hey, I'm gonna play tuba. When I first started I was a bass. I mean, I played tuba before I played bass, but I played bass for many years in a lot of bands. And the first time I brought in tuba, I was playing with this piano player, rest in peace, Sean Martin. Amazing piano player, toured with Snarky Puppy for years, Kirk Franklin, all that. And he hired me to play bass, and I'm playing bass with him, and I brought the tuba. I didn't tell him, but I brought the tuba, and I had a little mixer, plugged it into the amp, had it going, had a kick drum mic down the bell. So I spent hours trying to make sure the sound was exactly the same. So I didn't want him to even know. I had my little tuba, hit it behind the bass rig, and then he had one song that felt really appropriate to do bass, and I still have the video where I was like, all right, I'm going to flip it over, and I started playing bass, and he didn't realize until he looked back, he's like, oh, damn, that's, and then he got real into it. He's like, oh, this is cool. But I knew if I just had said, hey, man, what if I play tuba instead? He would have been like, I don't know, I don't see it. We're not like a brass band. But I just went in as a bass player and be like, by the way, I'm going to do that. And I didn't even ask for permission. I just did it. And he's a cool enough guy where he was like, he loved it. And then since then, when he would call me for gigs, he would be, I say, you want bass or tuba? He's like, whatever you want. You do you. Which is really
Can I summarize Bill up, man, like this because it came to my head and I was like, and he just, I don't even have to say anything after I say this. The imposition comes before the invitation. So we impose ourselves, get out there and show what we can do, and then all of a sudden, man, people are asking for that. It's that simple. The imposition comes before the invitation.
Yeah.
So, and that's exactly what Bill kept hitting. I was sitting there going, ooh, that fits what I'm going to say. That's awesome, Bill. Thank you.
Are open mics a thing out where you guys live?
Everywhere.
That's one thing we have in the Northwest is you can't throw a stick without finding an open mic at some coffee shop or some bar or something.
More.
And that's something I was actually just thinking about, like, I need to start bringing my horn to open mics. Because you just get out there and go, okay, well, let's just try it. Other folks are bringing harps and harmonicas, and guitar. There's always an old white guy with a beard and a guitar, and and then there's the occasional bass guitarist, the occasional saxophonist. It's like, well, why not just bring your damn tuba, And
yeah, dude, if you know a couple, Beatles tunes or whatever, or just whatever the regional demographic likes, just know those tunes, or go one time without it and see what the vibe is, and then the next time go with it and try and make something happen. Maybe you'll fall flat on your face. That's okay. Everybody does it at some point. It's just like, that's the thing is it's like nobody's gonna think of it until you show them.
Yeah.
And I think you said this earlier. It looks cool. Like, it's just the aesthetic of it. People want something that there's so many bands that have guitar, bass, and drums, and then you have this different element in it, and it's just immediately separates that band from. All you did was just swap out bass to tuba, and all of a sudden it's a different aesthetic. It's a vibe that people are into. So you'll always be noticed. You walk into a jam session with this thing, and people will they'll remember you, for better or for worse.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we're all of us this week, we're all gonna go to some sort of jam or musical situation with our tuba that we haven't been to before, and we're gonna show people, right?
Yeah.
Hand up. Put your hand up if you're gonna do it.
I'm calling Olio.
I will try.
I'm gonna put my hands on 9 and 3 here.
Hey, what,
And-
bro? You can go anywhere. You can just go walk into a random blues jam in whatever town you're in.
Oh
and
man, that's
never,
I wish that was
great.
never care or ever see you again. There's
I
no
would-
mistake.
Some stranger just walks in with his
I
There's
just
no
wish-
mistake, bro.
I wish it worked that way. It
does
can't. You
work
know
that
what though?
way.
I can.
It
I
does
can
work
make
that
it
way.
work
You're
way.
telling yourself it
Yeah.
does. You wish it was. I wish it
Yeah.
didn't work that way, but
that
it
would
does.
be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. This was a great hang. Thanks everybody for coming. Miles, I see you. Bobby, I see you. Thanks for coming out. If you all don't know Miles Lyons, this is one of the most goated sousaphone players in New Orleans.
Miles is a bad dude.
Miles, a bad dude.
But
You
he
want
said
to say anything to
he's
sign us off,
valid.
Miles?
What's happening?
Say something to sign us off, bro. Wrap it all up for us.
Thank you.
Hey, bro. Y'all just keep on doing what y'all doing. I see a lot of familiar faces on here, so I'm loving seeing it. Good to see y'all.
Love you, bro. I'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
See y'all next Tuesday.